Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the City Chatter Podcast. I'm your host, John Bernstrom, Public Information Officer for the City of Grand Forks. And in this episode, we're joined by Council Vice President Danny Weigel. I'm still getting used to calling you that, Council Vice President. Oh, even though it's been, 7 months?
Yeah, that's okay.
Are you used
still
to it yet?
Still one of seven, John.
I was going to say, like last night, you ran the meeting. You getting used to all that fun stuff?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a different perspective, right? When you're going through the items and you actually, not that I wouldn't pay attention for the entire meeting anyways, but every now and then you have to really pay extra close attention when you're running a meeting.
Well, I think it's like in any other organization, if you're on a board or whatever, you talk about seeing how the sausage is made.
Yep.
Right now, right, you see the meeting behind the meeting behind the meeting.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then you're just like, oh, that's how we got here. Oh, that wasn't nice.
Yep. No, it's always interesting, right? All the good engineering projects, and their entire name is a paragraph and a half long.
That's right.
Because you got to get everything into the record, and so you're trying to read all that and not sound like a dummy.
That or the project that was on the agenda, but then taken off the agenda, then put back on the agenda, and then now it's just fine. But
Absolutely.
All the I use the term mental gymnastics that happens behind the scenes. Yeah,
absolutely.
So haven't had a council member on in since before Christmas. We had mayor on. We've had staff, and we're working in more city staff with these podcasts. So I've got a few things to hit here from a council that weren't necessarily from yesterday. Casino. Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa have approached the city again. Mm-hmm. Hey, we've got some land south of I-29. We're looking to, or south of Grand Forks on I-29, looking to put a casino. There's lots of hoops to hop through. Just from a council perspective, when they first came forward, was it, all right, we'll see where we're at, or you just... I'm one that until a shovel hits the ground, there's a long road to go.
Well, I think, John, you've been in government a little while.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit.
And you understand how some of these things work. And I think I've said the same thing, right? I compare any large major project that's listed as coming to Grand Forks or as an idea to come to Grand Forks is take that 100-piece puzzle that you have, dump it on the table, find one corner piece and put it down. That's the initial conversation, right?
Right.
A lot of these projects have so many different things that have to be done in order for this project to come forward and get completed. And so for me, I guess I don't put a whole lot of stake into the idea that it is coming. I'm willing to listen and be open to any idea that's coming forward. But until there's, kind of like you said, a shovel going into the ground, or we're close to that point where a shovel's going into the ground, I still always think we're so far away. And so that's what I want people to realize, is that just because something hits the city council agenda, it's not being built tomorrow. They're not starting to dig tomorrow.
Right.
There's still so many things that have to get complete in order for us to move forward.
And on this particular one, there's the added layer of state approval, and not even state approval. There's a change of state law. There's a bill going through the state legislature right now that would change the parameters of tribal gaming for that tribe. There's a federal component to this one, and that's even before it gets into, all right, if all those dominoes fall, then let's start getting in the nitty-gritty of what water lines look like.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of different layers to this process, especially with this one, maybe more so than some others. So, like I said, I think we're pretty early on. I think there's a lot of work left to be done by the tribe and others. And if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And just like any other project that we work on, we're going to do our best to make sure they're accommodated with what they need to run their business.
Also recently, at a city council level, you guys got an update on the Ultra Sports Complex. That's our pool and turf facility. They're 70% done with design, so not quite there yet. The budget's getting closer, and looking to do some bidding here soon. Throughout this process, it feels like it's such a long process, but then you're going to look back and you're like, that's just a couple of years, right? Yeah. Is this project coming along the way you like to see it? As you're wearing your BMX jacket, it's going to be a neighbor to you?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think that there's a ton of opportunity with youth sports all over the country. And I've said this before, that the youth sports industry is a larger industry than the NFL as far as economic impact. And right now, if you look at it, we may have one Grand Forks soccer tournament a year. We may have one event of this every year,
Sure.
or one event of that every year. Well, part of that is because of our location, right?
Yeah, it gets cold.
It gets cold quick, and it's tough to play soccer like today. And so you need the facilities to be able to do that, host more tournaments. Where I think it is going to be the city's taking on a big lift in order to get this facility done. I think another big lift is to have our local youth sports organizations be able to say, yes, we're committed to having X amount of tournaments every year.
Sure.
Because we all know that building is funded by sales tax. And part of that sales tax is to get people into Grand Forks, get those families into Grand Forks to stay in hotels, to go pick up groceries, to go out to eat, to stop and get gas, all those other little things. And so you need to have the tournaments in order to support a facility like that.
Well, that's where they come in with those formulas. For every dollar spent, it's like $3. Because, like you said, is you just don't come here, stay in the hotel, and go to the tournament. You also go out to eat. You probably fill up gas, probably pick up some snacks. I can't get in the car with my kids without are we stopping for snacks?
And usually, honestly, like I travel a ton with my son for different youth sports. You'd think at this point I'd be more prepared and have a stockpile in the cupboard to bring with me.
Right.
But then you go to grab those ones and he's like, I'm not a big fan of those ones.
not
and
today.
I'm like, oh, that makes
Not
sense.
today.
That's why they're still there. So now we got to go to the store and get some more. And half the time it's in the community that we're already in.
Yeah, or it's my house. It's, can we stop and get a bubbler? Well, there's bubbler in the garage. Oh, well, no, wrong flavor.
Yeah.
Wrong flavor.
No, absolutely.
Right, drink.
Completely get it. Yep.
Wrong flavor. Some really big news that happened in January. Agristo Potato out of Belgium they were looking to site their first North American facility, and they have made a decision as an organization that they're going to site in Grand Forks. Still working on the details of where exactly that is. And again, this is within a month. But major news, potato growers, they've been working with potato growers in this community for a few years. As a city council member, to have something come forward and say, oh, we're coming here, now we're ready to work with you, as opposed to coming, we're not sure yet, what are you going to show us? That's some big news for potato growers in the area and the community.
Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity to support the farmers in and around the Grand Forks area. It's probably going to extend further than that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's one of those projects that Agristo has a proven name. They've been around a long time. It's a family-owned company. I think we all hope that the spot they choose is the property that was once owned or currently owned by Fufang.
Sure.
That's what I hope, so we can put all that behind us and move forward with this new good company. And so I think it's going to be a good thing. I think, again, maybe we got all four corners now on this project.
Sure.
And maybe some other pieces.
But not all the edges yet.
Absolutely. So we still got to work through that process, and just like any other project, and hope to see it get done.
It's nice when they made the announcement that they said we want to come to Grand Forks. Financially, we couldn't. They were also looking in Wisconsin. Financially, we were behind them, but they go the farmers, the land, and the people of the Red River Valley were who they want to work with. The gentleman came and spoke to council and maybe cursed a little bit. There's that language barrier. He's like, if we don't like where we're going to, that's no fun.
Yep.
It's a credit to everyone around here.
Absolutely. I think, to me, I've always said the people in Grand Forks are the best, right? They're hardworking people. They put others first before themselves most of the time. And so I think that weighs a lot with a family-owned company like they are. And so I think it'll be a positive thing. And I think that, again, it's just something else to move our community forward and add another layer of good-paying careers for people. And can't wait to see it get done.
Yep, that's going to be a big one. I believe it was the same council meeting. An existing company here in town, Cirrus Aircraft, is looking to do a large expansion as well. And I think that's the progress of that Cirrus Aircraft went from renting a building to owning the building to now wanting to expand their operation is another good story, as Cirrus Aircraft is slowly becoming one of the larger employers in Grand Forks.
Absolutely. No, they've come a long way in Grand Forks, and I think that's a good thing. Obviously, there's always that concern, I think, in some people's minds that there is a connection there to the Chinese.
Sure, the company was bought. Yep.
Purchased by them. And but again, they've been here for a pretty long time, and so those are some of the things that I look at, right? I think we also had some folks weigh in from the federal side that they didn't have any concerns on their end with Cirrus expanding, and I think that's a good thing. Some due diligence there, checked some things out, and I think we're in a good place with them.
Because they're Chinese owned, they actually have a national security plan that they have to submit at a federal level every year, in order to keep doing business in the United States. And they've, as a company, have kept that up, and which has put them in good standing, as you said, with the federal government, and that goes a long way, right?
Absolutely.
You do good business, and it goes a long way. So with all these projects, I think there's from a staff level sometimes. I've had this conversation with Mr. Phelan. Is that balance, and I want to hear your perspective as a council member. It's the idea of, well, let's bring this forward, even if there's casino's a great idea. It's just conversation, but we're going to have this conversation at a public meeting early on, so no one's blindsided when we actually come forward with an agreement. Or is it we figure out some of the answers to these questions we know we're going to get before we bring it forward? As a council member, what do you prefer to see? Do you want to see it earlier, even though we don't or nobody knows the answers to some questions, or do you want some of that figured out before it actually gets to you?
I'm probably the opposite. I don't like to know about things too early. I'm good with knowing about it when everybody else knows about it.
Sure.
Right? I feel like then I can, as I sit there, I can start to formulate some of those questions. And at times, I've heard people say, well, Danny, you don't seem to ask a lot of questions at the meeting. Well, that's probably true in some aspects, but part of the aspect is the work behind the scenes as well. And because I think if everybody asked 8,000 questions, we'd be there till midnight every night. And so sometimes it's questions that people will call and ask me, hey, what's going on with X, Y, or Z in this project? So I'd literally call city staff and say, hey, what's going on with it? And then relay the answer back. And so I prefer just to know as it's coming out, work through some of those issues, work through some of those questions. I understand that if you have the answer to every single question that everybody has, you've probably been sitting on it too long.
Sure.
And you probably know too much, right? I think a lot of these projects, there's so many things that have to be worked out that if you already have everything worked out, we probably have an issue.
Sure. Right.
We're probably too far along.
I think it's that balance, right? Because there is that just natural human nature of I need to be able to answer the question, even though I don't know it.
Right.
Like I've had this engineers specifically. They're like, what if I don't know the answer? And I go, then tell them you don't know the answer, and you'll do the work to find it.
Well, and honestly, we're not the first people to ever do this.
Right.
Anything, right? I don't know the last time Grand Forks was the first person or the first city in the country to do something. Now, have we probably been on the leading edge of some of the UAS stuff? Absolutely.
Yep.
I would agree with that, but we're not the first to look at partnering with a tribe to build a casino off tribal lands. We're not the first to bring an egg processing company to our community. We're not the first for a lot of things. And so I think we can learn lessons from what other communities have done. That's what I've done is if I know a community that's done something, I'll reach out to them. Hey, what went well? What didn't? Because sometimes the things that don't go well never make the news, right?
Right.
Or maybe those are the only things that make the news.
Sure.
Depending on the source. And so then I ask the opposite question, what went really well that nobody knew about? So I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from other communities, things that they're doing, because odds are we're probably not the first one to do it.
And I think that's a good point. When things go smoothly, right, then it's not news. It's not right. It's not doesn't make the headlines because it went smoothly. Right?
Absolutely. And the one thing for me is there's been a lot of things that I probably haven't loved when they've come to the council.
Sure.
To me, that's I put my personal feelings aside on a lot of things. Just because I don't like it, it doesn't mean that the people that I represent don't like it.
Sure.
Or that they don't want it. And so for me, a lot of it is taking it in, and then as I'm on a walk or I'm on a bike ride or I run into people that I personally know, hey, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? Think it's a good idea? Do you not think it's a good idea? Because at the end of the day, I'm in this position to represent the people that are within Ward 1. And there's been times where I didn't agree with something, still voted for it, or maybe agreed with something but voted against it just because that's what I felt the majority of my people in my ward wanted. And so I try to balance that. And so I try to go into every conversation with an open mind, and learn and see what's actually in the project versus just saying, no, absolutely not. We're not doing this. That's not my style.
I think casino's a great example.
Yep.
There's so many questions, and there's the curious part of me. Just I'd like to hear the answer to some of these, but if we say no right now, we'll never know.
Right.
Right. And I think that corn processing, the food thing, like there's part of it too. Just like I'm curious about the air quality too.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I kind of want to figure. We never got to the point.
Right.
To answer some of those questions. Is a facility like that even feasible?
Yep.
Even feasible. So that's what is you talk about talking with people in your ward. Is there a hot topic at this point? Does winter have a hot topic in Ward 1? You've been doing this long enough. I bet you could almost predict when the phone rings. Oh, this is going to be about this. This is going to be about that.
Yeah. I always look at it a couple different ways. I don't get many calls, and so that tells me one of two things: either I'm doing a good job, or people have given up on me.
But then you got reelected, so
then nobody ran against me. So it must be teetering on the side of he's doing a decent job. And so, when I hear things, it's typically things that directly impact people.
Right.
Whether that is, I know
my neighbor is doing this.
Yes. Yeah. Things along those lines, or simple things, right? A couple of years ago, our city engineers, and I completely understand why they wanted to put a larger sidewalk on the one side of the road.
Oh, sure.
I completely get it. Yeah, like I understand. It all makes sense to me. But then on the other hand, I thought, why wouldn't we put it on the side of where the park is?
Sure.
People would rather walk around and look into a park than look at somebody's house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and those houses don't have a ton of front yardage area or space anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's like, those are the things I typically hear about, right?
Right.
Those are the little things of...
outside my window, I see this.
Yes, absolutely. Things that directly impact people on a day-to-day basis. Those are the things I hear about. I've heard about the casino from somebody in my ward, from one person within my ward.
Interesting.
And so those are the things that I think Ward 1, it's a unique ward, I could think, compared to many other wards within the city, because I have a combination of some college students and part of the university. And then I got another combination of a lot of families or some retired folks on the west side of the interstate. And so it's kind of a unique balance between the two sides of the ward.
Ward 1 and Ward 2, I've always said, are the most unique because from the demographics standpoint, you guys have the widest swath.
Absolutely.
You have I'm renting a house with a couple of my buddies for 2 years until I complete school.
Yep.
You also have I built this house and I've lived here my entire life, and they may be neighbors.
Yep, absolutely.
Throughout the rest of town, you don't run into as much of that. But Wards 1 and Ward 2, you guys have that.
Absolutely.
That's a very unique dynamic.
Yeah, and I enjoy it, right? Because I think you add some youth to the ward, but at the same time, you still have people that have been there for a long time. They have some historical perspective of Grand Forks, and as I get older, I think I have some of that historical perspective as well. I still remember as a kid when 42nd Street was all gravel all the way down, and some of those things, right? So those are things that I still remember, but I think that it's a really good mix of people within the ward, and I enjoy where I live. And I've never lived on the south end. That's what I tell people. I've never lived on the south end of Grand Forks. I've only ever lived on the north end, and so north end is
where you're at.
I call them my people.
That's right. I've lived on both. Yep. And they're both our original neighborhood. My son, who's now 15, still every once in a while says, "Hey, remember that first house? I like this and I like that." And it was a tighter neighborhood, both physically, but you hang out in the backyard and you talk to the neighbors and all this. Yep. We do that currently in our existing house, right? But it's just a different dynamic, and it's not wrong or right on either side. Yep. Just different.
Absolutely,
just different. How's the basketball season gone so far for you this year?
It's we're getting close to tournament time, John. So
next week,
a couple weeks, I think.
Okay,
we're getting close though. It's been busy. A lot of high school games. I joined the fine folks in Thompson tonight for their game against Grafton, so I'll be out there tonight. And then I actually have a couple days off No college games this weekend. I was at Moorhead State last weekend, so I was working some games down there and
I've asked you this
all over the place.
on the college side. Are you working for the league? Because that would be NSIC, right?
Yeah, so I'm an independent contractor.
Oh, you are? Okay.
But I'm hired. You get a yearly contract, essentially, and you sign that contract. Then they assign you your games. And on the college side, you either work men's or women's. Never
okay.
both unless there's an emergency, right?
Sure.
Unless you need to, because they play them back-to-back. And then
Oh,
they
yeah,
switch halfway through the year. So first half of the year, women's games will be first, men's games are second, and then they flip-flop.
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
men's games will be first, women's games will be second. And so unless there's an emergency, in the 7 or 8 years I've been in the Northern Sun, I've never had to
Do both.
do both.
Right.
So, and that's a good thing.
Well, I could see some benefit from an official standpoint being consistent in a
Yes.
league. All right, we're coming in. This kid does that. This kid
Yep.
does that. This team's physical. This team's
Yep.
not physical. Just to have an idea
Well,
of.
and there's a lot of different rules too.
Yeah.
Things that you could give me a basketball quiz on the men's side, and I'd probably get 50% of them right, 50% of them wrong.
Oh,
just
as far as
because
the rules.
the rules go, right?
Yep.
A foul is a foul. I think we could all agree on that.
Well,
A travel's a travel. A
right.
double dribble is a double dribble.
But 10-second rule.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Advancing the ball to the front court in the last minute of the
Yeah.
game, all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot of things that going on. But I think I'm down to about 10 games left for the rest of the year, 10 to 12 games, and I think it'll be a nice little break going into spring.
On the high school side, have you gotten any tournament assignments?
Yeah, so I'll work some postseason. No state tournament this year. I've worked the last couple, so I'm going to sit out a year. Like they have a sit-out rule, so I'm going to sit out a year.
Okay.
Yep, you can only work about 3, and then you have to sit 1 year. So
Okay.
I'll work some local region tournaments in the area on the high school side, and then maybe a little college postseason as well.
Then you get right into being. Then the snow's gone.
Snow's
and,
gone,
and then you're
hopefully.
then you're racing bikes.
Yeah, that's the plan. Between racing bikes and soccer, we stay busy in the spring, summer, and then the fall. Right, we're gonna do. My son loves football. He loves all sports, and so it's tough because he's like, "Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that." So I tell him, play as many sports as you want. Right.
Yep. Be good at some.
Yep.
Have to work hard at others. Yeah.
Or just go play because your buddies are playing.
Yep.
So
Be
just
on a
go
team.
have fun. Absolutely. Like you're not going to be good at everything. And so I enjoy traveling around and watching him do what he loves. And if I could do that 24/7, I would. It's great.
Yep. My son is in the high school level now, but when he was not even Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken baseball. How'd the game go? I don't think he knew the score of any game.
Yep.
Oh, so and so said this that was funny in the dugout. So and so did this, and so did that.
Yep.
It was-
My son's ultra competitive. He's like
he
me.
knows the score?
I hate losing at anything. I'm that Vikings fan, right? That once they lose, I need like a good solid hour just to be like, you know what? Okay, there's next week.
That's right.
But I'm ultra competitive. He's ultra competitive, but in a good way, right?
Sure. Yep. As long as that's channeled the right way.
Yeah. No, I had Coach Mike Berg as my football coach.
Oh, yeah.
And so
You've had the best.
He's always said that you win with class, you lose with class, and that stuck with me. And be as competitive as you want between the whistles, but once the whistle blows,
Then it's done.
it's done. It's
Yeah,
over
no,
with. So
good for him. So speaking of football, we just had the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I found some interesting stats of the players in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to ask you this. So 103 active players between the two teams.
Okay.
Which college? It's tied for first. Which two colleges had the most players out there?
We'll go with Alabama on one.
It's not.
Okay.
I would have been with you.
Georgia.
Right? That's one.
Okay. Georgia and I'll just throw out Texas.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yep.
That was close.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which is interesting because Oklahoma college football recent years hasn't been
Correct.
great.
Nope.
Hasn't been great. Which then brings up the average NFL career isn't very long.
Correct.
Right. So in the Super Bowl, the average tenure, like what is of all the players, 103.
Is there a decimal on there?
There is a decimal.
Okay.
I'll let you round up or down.
I'm gonna go with 5.8.
4.3.
Okay.
4.3.
I believe that.
With your, I believe the oldest player on the field was Travis Kelce.
Okay.
at how many years in the league. I didn't realize how old he was.
He's been around a while.
He's been around.
I think he used to play quarterback as well back in high school.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think he was a quarterback at one point. Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
This is one that gets me, right? We're closer in size than not in size, right? We're not the tallest people in the world.
Correct.
Right? My son has that in his future.
Yep.
There were 27 players on the field that were over 300 pounds.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And the biggest player was also the tallest player, that offensive lineman for Philly. He was 6'7", 365.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a big person.
What's crazy is I was watching a podcast with a former NFL offensive tackle, and he's back down to a normal weight, right? He's still 6'4", 6'5",
right?
Down to a normal weight for him.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked him, how long would it take you to get
back up
to
there?
be ready to play an NFL football game, provided that you're healthy, that you can still do it. And he said he would probably need 3 to 5 weeks just to put on weight. And he goes, that's eating nonstop.
That's eating whether you're hungry or not.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Just to put on the weight back to go back and play.
Now, of that, there are 27 players over 300 pounds.
Yep.
There were 20 players in that game under 200.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
but they're a lot quicker than you and I are, John. That's the thing. They're either you got to be big and strong or short and fast.
The smallest player is that Worthy, the receiver for Kansas City, who ran a 4.2
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has the fastest 40-yard dash in the combine.
There's a door over there. It's going to take me 4 minutes, 4 seconds, 2 seconds to get to the door.
Yeah, no, he's quick.
Yeah, he's quick. Well, Danny, good luck coming up outside of city council. You got playoff time coming up.
Yep.
You've got busy time with your son, and then again, thanks for being the vice president on the council and leading meetings like last night and moving the city forward. I think I've worked for the city now for 18 years. The projects that are coming forward, one after the other, I think is pretty exciting. It's none of it's easy, but it's pretty exciting stuff.
No, and I think this is what I look at. I don't want to be Fargo, right? I've never wanted to be Fargo size. But at the same time, I think we can continue to have smart growth, grow little by little, have opportunities for people and their families here within our community, but also avoid maybe some of those bigger city issues that some communities experience. And so that, not saying it's all going to be perfect all the time, but we're going to do our best to get it there.
Or with those big city issues, because they grow so fast.
Absolutely.
Right. If you grow incrementally, and you address it, which Grand Forks has done.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
People compare us to Fargo. Oh, they've gotten so big. Well, we've grown too, just not as fast as they have.
Correct. And I'm okay with that.
Yep. That's good. Danny Weigel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. And thank you to Danny. Thank you to you for listening to this episode of the City Chatter Podcast. You want to catch this episode or any other of the previous 34 episodes, this was episode 35, you can go to grandforksgov.com/podcast. We'll catch you next time.